since you found the skeleton, how would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts with some number, I don't know, Billy Carson, channels Zechariah Sitchin, because one of the things that Billy Carson likes to do is he likes to say, well, I'm not reading the Zechariah Sitchin translation. So what he does is he'll read someone else's translation, but then he'll just give you an interpretation that lines up with Zechariah Sitchin's translation anyway. So, that's always fun. I am joined, as usual, by both Dr. Kip Davis and not a Dr. Vishanti.
That's correct. I am not a doctor.
I am not a
of
doctor
any
either.
kind.
I play one on TV.
Actually,
I would like to say,
sorry.
before you do that, that I would like to give special thanks to both MetaGeeky and Joshua Geese, who have graciously, generously provided me some items, very needed items off of my Amazon Vivish list.
Yes.
So thank you.
And
Those
by
were
the way,
very timely and very helpful.
the Vish list, as well as both Vish's channel and Dr. Kip's channel, are linked in the description. So if you are also interested in helping either of them out by going to their channels or getting Vishanti something from her Vish list, it is right there. You don't even have to click through to her channel. Because I remember this time. I don't always.
Oh, good. That's good that you remembered.
Yes, it is. It's definitely better to remember than not to. So we have a super chat here. Roshan, a localized standard compare Keller for $4.99 says, I know that Turkish dotless I should sort differently based on locale settings. Okay. I don't know.
That's a super chat.
Thank you.
That's what it is. Awesome.
Did I use a dotless I?
By the way, misinterpretations says that Reverend Dr. Peters is now her new favorite preacher.
Sweet.
Which I did you see that one? The Reverend Dr. Rebecca Todd Peters that we featured in our
that was the one who gave the sermon that IP was really angry
not
about.
IP.
Oh no, who was it?
It's it was like some mustachioed gentleman named the wise disciple.
So here's the thing. If there's a apologist who doesn't do a lot of science denial, there is basically a 0% chance I've ever heard of them or care about them at all.
Yes, we're aware.
Yeah.
So, but that's why I'm here.
To me, they're all the same. They're just some guy who's an apologist, and I'm like, okay, cool. I can't keep them straight. Although I am apparently supposed to talk to IP at some point, because Jackson Wheat is setting up a chat between the three of us.
Don't know why you would do such a thing. But when you do, make sure to say hi.
I will actually. And I have a really easy answer as to why I would do such a thing. It's content. That's why. That's good. Literally it.
Sure.
There are people who are in both my audience and Jackson's audience who will want to see it. And so I am here to help those people out.
Something else, perhaps, that you can do, Dapper, when you do talk to Michael Jones from IP, is correct his unmitigated bullshit about the Men of Al-Zut, which is an astonishingly crass, racist stereotype that he likes to propagate about Islam. So
you would have to give me more information about specifically what that is, which is not something we should do on air. That is something you should type up later and send that to me.
I certainly shall.
Otherwise, I will have absolutely no idea. We have two more super chats. Meat Permits Tan for $5 says, when you hear the pop funk will be within you, AIG is a bag of Billy Carson's. Good to see you, Dr. Kill and the Vitch. And I will take a drink. Man, The Vitch is a great movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should absolutely go see it. It is excellent.
Which one?
The Vitch.
The Witch.
The Witch.
Well, it's spelled with two V's.
Is that on our list?
The Vitch. It should be.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is on our list.
All
I
right.
can state
Did you all
definitively.
did you all see? I put this in the chat that yesterday I watched 28 Days Later, and it's very good.
It's a good movie.
Was that
is
on our
good.
list?
Yes,
I probably
I can check that off.
as
now.
was. Okay, I will mark it for you.
All right.
I-
Jordan K for $20 says tacos with taco emoji in exchange for starships. Yes, I sent Jordan. Jordan's starting his own Star Trek Adventures game using the second edition rules, which I have not switched over to. Great. But wanted to see if I could send over any like art assets for like maps or things like that. And so I'm going through my art assets of various maps. And I notice I have a bunch of Starship tokens too. And you know, it's Star Trek, so they're gonna work for just about any one Star Trek Adventures campaign. So then I sent over a bunch of those. So this one little innocent like, hey, could I get a few maps? Turned into me sending over like, I don't know, a few dozen different art assets that I've used at various times. So hey, if you need art assets and I just have them handy, you should ask. There's a fair chance I'll just hand them over to you. Unless someone else already paid for them, in which case, no. Like, I'm not going to hand you one of Maddie's maps that she paid me for. Rotional Localized Standard Compare Keller for $4.99 says, macOS, iOS, etfam have localized standard compare method for sorting strings that explicitly takes the dotless I into account. I think it's neat. Oh, okay. So we're talking about an iOS and sorting string data. Yeah, I did not catch that as the context there. That it was sorting string data. I don't use a lot of strings in anything that I do, aside from just like actually typing out like blocks of text for scripts and stuff. I don't deal with string data a lot, so I don't know about the various peculiarities. Although I do know that way too many programs, if a string contains text that should be right to left, just have no idea what to do with that.
Uncle Scrooge has a lot of string.
All right, so also we do have a super chat goal. We are currently at 4 out of 30. If we hit it, the F-bomb limit is lifted, and especially Dr. Kip is unshackled, although that also includes me and Vishanti. It's just that we're less, we curse less, despite the fact that I'm a former sailor. So
And
Kip,
that I'm a drummer, but also
Yeah.
we've already determined that Dapper is less prone to recognizing when I curse or drop the F-bomb than he is with Kip.
it's true. It kind of escapes me sometimes. People are like, oh, Vishanti just dropped the F-bomb. I'm like, wait, did she?
You heard nothing.
You're a Jedi. That actually checks out.
Maybe. Yeah.
Kent, the Bacteria Kind Halstead for $4.99 says, hi Dapper, watching you with my mom. Love you, Mom. Aw, then there's a bunch
Hi,
of heart
Mom.
emojis and some heart kissies. She wanted to hear Kip say she wants to hear Kip say naughty words. All right, well, in that case, hey, we gotta get
Mom is based.
the goal for Kent's mom.
Is it because the funny thing to me is because I don't feel like I'm very good at it. Is it because people want to make fun of me for not being
think
very good
so.
at saying the naughty words? Is that it? Are you all? Am I just not in on the joke?
All right, here we go.
It's not a joke. People just like hearing you say the F-bomb.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna find out. All right.
Because you're a scholar, and there's this idea, for whatever reason, that scholars are like these prim and proper, like super buttoned up, oh, you would never use such déclassé language to, articulate your feeling. Like, so when you hear scholars just let loose, they're like, oh, and it's entertaining.
I didn't even get a chance to. Vish and I had Professor Matthew Goff and Dr. Jeffrey Smith on my channel yesterday talking about John Marco Allegro. People should watch it if they haven't already. It was a super fun and interesting stream. We were talking about Matt's new article. I don't think I sent it to you, did I, Vish? I should. About John Marco Allegro, and he has some absolute zingers in there.
Good.
People have no
Good.
idea.
Love it.
I think I sent a couple of those to you guys because they're so damn funny. I think if I can find a couple of them here, I will share them. But carry on.
Oh, also, that reminds me, because Dapper was holding my feet to the fire on this, as I asked him to do.
Mhm.
I am currently behind the scenes right now, literally in a different tab, setting up. I got another fundraiser. The last one that I did was around October or November of 2024, and at the time, it it was necessary, and I obviously did not anticipate being in the situation that I am now. I have been doing multiple job interviews. I just did a second round this past week, but one of the jobs that I've been interviewing for is taking an inordinate amount of time to get through the process, and there's yet another round, and then there's work to do, and then there's hopefully a paycheck if they end up hiring me. So yet again, my back is against the wall despite all of my efforts. So, here we go again, I guess. Yeah, I'm not super excited to announce that, but, hey, if there's people out there who are in a position to help, that would be very much appreciated. So I'm setting that up while we work. You might get a link in the middle of the stream. So.
Okay. And also, we will be having a fundraising special at some point next month, in which a good fraction of any super chats or membership or anything that the video makes will go over towards Vishanti. So that way, it's also just a normal stream as far as you guys are concerned, except that also Vishanti gets a cut. So there you go. And also, I feel like some people like my special streams where we go for hours. But that since it is, in fact,
can be fun.
Yeah. Although since it is a Vishanti fundraiser stream, it does mean she's legally obligated to be there no matter how long it lasts. So we'll have to pick a day when she has a clear schedule.
Just sitting here torturing me, providing psychic damage for hours and hours and hours and hours.
We have two more things to go over. One is I'm going to do a little PSA, and then, actually, first I'm going to read this new super chat by My Unfinished Journey. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, "Hail Nero, hail Daps, and Dr. Kill, and Vish, and hail the upcoming Blasphemers Bible / Dapper Dinosaur Orgy." Oh, there we go. Got
Orgy.
it. Thank you. All right, so the one quick PSA is, hey, scammers are on Steam as well as texting you and whatnot. I got a Steam message. So basically, one thing is my Steam is somewhat public, right? Like it's been placed in a few different public places in case anyone who's, a regular chatter on the channel or something wants to send me a Steam friend message. And then, sometimes I play games with people from the Discord server or whatever. I don't care that much. My Steam doesn't have to be super private. But what that also means is that sometimes I get friend requests from names I don't recognize. I'm just thinking, whatever, fine. Well, one such person messaged me today while I was trying to make deliveries in Death Stranding to say that I was the one who had purchased their Call of Duty item or something for like $1,500, which is definitely not something I would ever do, because not only is it a game I don't play, there's no way I would pay $1,000+ for a cosmetic item in a video game. That's just not me. If it's you, hey, And then they were like, oh, well, I shouldn't have reported you. And they send me this fake screenshot that's allegedly from Steam saying that, oh, they're reporting this illegal transaction to the police and they're going to be shutting down this person's whole Steam thing. And so then I'm like, all right.
And you found out from them and not Steam, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the Steam's screenshot said that Steam wouldn't be contacting me about this because that's how Steam works. Yeah.
Sure.
So then I said, okay, so how does this scam work? At what point do I have to go get you gift cards or whatever? And then they suddenly unfriended me. So just a heads up, hey, the scammers are on Steam too. And yeah, Steam is not going to just delete your account and send info to the police without saying anything, especially if you're someone who, gives them a bunch of money and doesn't otherwise have any illegal transactions going on. And also, it's not illegal to buy cosmetic items on the Steam store. That's what it's for. Oh, and drink for Mothra, because Mothra just came by.
Heard Mothra this time. Yeah!
Yay! All right, everybody. We are talking about Billy Carson today. Billy Carson is talking about how he doesn't believe in evolution because instead he believes that aliens came down and genetically engineered various apes into humans, which it's a little weird. It's kind of like saying you don't believe in gravity because this rock you found in your yard is heart-shaped. And it's like, I don't see what? How do those things I don't know. I don't know where he thinks those apes came from. I don't know where he thinks fossils came from. Does he think that every new organism was actually genetically engineered by a different set of aliens? None of it makes any sense. On top of this, he is variously reading from things like the Epic of Atrahasis, and sometimes he's referencing one of the two major works known as the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, one of which was a sort of like medieval Arabic composition based on Hermetic philosophy that had made its way into the Arab world after the Arab conquests of the Roman Empire. And the other one is basically I think, late 19th century, although I'm not positive on the date, but it's a modern channeled work, if you will, in which basically some guy said that he was being like possessed by the spirit of Thoth the Atlantean, who was a priest king of Atlantis before it fell, and who created the civilization of Egypt, and he was giving us all of this further wisdom, which was a bit of Hermeticism mixed with just a bunch of New Age woo. And so Billy Carson takes that, and he synthesizes that with Zechariah Sitchin's interpretation of various Sumerian texts and other ancient Near East texts, like the Epic of Atrahasis. And then he just spouts his nonsense. And to help defend himself, he doesn't exactly tell you what he means by the ancient tablets, although it's very clear because he talks about emerald tablets in other videos. And also, he'll point out that he's not reading from the Zechariah Sitchin translation, which is technically true. However, whenever he gets to a point where the Zechariah Sitchin translation would veer off into crazy nonsense, he tells you that what it actually means is the crazy nonsense that the Zechariah Sitchin translation would have in it, which isn't actually in the text. So while it's technically not true that he's reading the Zechariah Sitchin translation, he's essentially channeling Zechariah Sitchin, hence the title of this particular stream. And Goop23 for $2 says, the Epic of Octopuses? No, this is not the epic of any James Bond villains, no matter how suggestively named.
Amazing.
By the way, when you mentioned the heart-shaped rock thing, I was just reminded that when I lived in Norway, I was hiking with my son at Prikteskolen once, which is a pulpit rock. It's very famous. It's just outside of Stavanger. I saw a rock on the trail with a moss impression lichen thingy. I don't know, what do you call those when there's the lichen on the rock?
I would call it a patch of lichen.
A patch of lichen, thank you. That was in a perfect shape of a Herodian letter sheen. It was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I'm pretty sure that what you just did
it looked
is
like
you just
it was penned by Herod
evolution.
himself. I think so.
Yeah, that probably disproves evolution. All right, so Billy Carson is talking right now specifically about how he seems to think it is silly that evolution occurred at all, and he's using as his particular example right now the sort of aquatic tetrapod to, or not aquatic tetrapod, sorry, the aquatic fish to tetrapod evolutionary sequence, which he seems to think is just silly based on saying it in a funny voice with a tone of incredulity. That seems to be his argument, is that if he just says it like it's silly, then suddenly it becomes so. Which isn't an argument, in case anyone is wondering. Here we go.
It grows legs, and eventually it comes up almost like a salamander type of a thing. And then from there...
I just want to point out, salamanders are in fact a group of list amphibians who separated from the line, leading to amniotes like reptiles and mammals quite a ways back, and they are themselves a highly derived group of animals, and nothing that is going on here in this chart is very much like a salamander, except that I guess it has 4 limbs and it needs to live near water. That's about it. It's not much of a connection there. So, yeah. Salamander isn't like synonymous with just basal tetrapod. That's not how that works.
You know, he doesn't know explanation of how these salamanders turn into monkeys.
You know, in one of my more recent videos, I had an actual series of transitional forms leading from basically a worm in the Cambrian all the way to humans. We actually do have both good fossil and good theoretical ideas as to how this happens. Now, Darwin's ideas are probably insufficient, right? Because Darwin was just natural selection and sometimes sexual selection. Eventually, he came around on that. He didn't have any idea how variation was introduced. But ultimately, we do know how this happens. It's natural selection, sexual selection, genetic drift, and mutation. And that's basically it. Everything else actually ends up falling under one of those categories. Like you say, oh, what about niche construction? Yeah, that comes under natural selection. What about adaptive radiation? Again, that comes under natural selection. Yeah. What about like whole genome duplication? Yeah, that comes under mutation. So we do know there's no particular mystery about how this happened broadly. There are unanswered questions within like specific areas, like what exactly was the environmental pressure that made additional or better terrestrial locomotion, directionally selected for across several million years? There's a lot of plausible answers, like predation, but do I know for certain? No. But that's kind of like saying, like, oh, hey, look, you came to a car wreck on the side of the road. There's a patch of ice. There's tire skid marks. I bet this guy skidded out when he hit the patch of ice and went into the ditch. And it's like, okay, but why was he on the road in the first place? I don't know. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. It just means there's things about this that I don't know. Like, well, how old were the tires? I also don't know that. But that doesn't change the most likely explanation. LARPer Nurse for $5 says, I hope that he tells us his theory of pyramids being a power plant. Oh, yeah. It's got so many internal inconsistencies that hearing it gave me psychic damage. Yeah, Billy Carson is also into ancient high technology, which, it all sort of comes together into this one conglomeration of absolute nonsense that you get from people like Billy Carson, Graham Hancock, was it
Corsetti, D. Dunking,
Mm-hmm.
Brian Forster, L.A. Marzulli,
the crazy hair man, what's his name? From Ancient Aliens?
Giorgio.
Yeah, Tsoukalos, yeah. His buddies like David Childress and whatnot, who are regulars on the show. All of them are swimming in these same circles. And
Robert Bivall.
I want to point out that these are the circles that are getting the majority of their ideas from actual Nazis. And I mean, like, card-carrying members of the Nazi party during the early 20th century. I don't mean, like, someone who's a white supremacist living in, like, the 1970s who likes Nazi memorabilia. I mean literal card-carrying party members who were thought leaders within the party. That's where most of this comes from. And it was almost entirely just made up based on snippets of ancient legends in order to pretend that there was some kind of global supremacy validity to the idea of an Aryan nation. So while I don't think that Billy Carson is a white supremacist, and I think that's pretty obvious, and I don't actually think Graham Hancock is, or David Childress, or whatever.
He's trading on those ideas.
He's trading on those ideas, and also people who get into that, who are already susceptible to crazy conspiratorial thinking, may get led down the path of getting into Nazi conspiracy theories, which can then lead them to become white supremacists. So
see, this is
it's not a good time.
This is relevant. This is part of what we spent some time talking about yesterday on our stream. The technical term for this is perennialism. It's grounded in this idea that there's an essentialist nature to just about every aspect of human behavior or culture that can't be explained outside of this outside of essentially what amounts to, I would say, an idea of a higher power. But very often in these sorts of pseudo-historical, pseudo-scientific spheres, this higher power ends up being, white guys.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're not aware of the background of that, it's you can still be causing serious harm, serious damage, just by propagating a lot of these methodological stereotypes. Super antiquated too. It's based on, a lot of this is based on Fraser's the Golden Bough, which was written in the end of the 19th century, I think.
And in addition to that, there is a lot of people who are using the work of Ignatius Donnelly from the 19th century, and that guy was an actual white supremacist who argued for an Aryan race. He argued that it was the founding of Atlantis, and that these are people who literally pull from actual white supremacists. They're not just randos on the internet. They're doing actual harm, and they're pulling from people who undergird, white supremacist and neo-Nazi ideology. So
here's one thing: if you are watching this, probably in the future, as a Billy Carson fan, and you were about to tell me that all I'm doing is an argument from consequences, I want to point something out. I am not saying that these ideas are wrong because they are harmful. I am pointing out that they are wrong, and on top of that, they are also harmful. Those are separate statements, and they are not necessarily causally linked to each other. They just both happen to be true. So before you come at me like, well, that's just an argument from consequences. I am not making an argument from consequences. I am pointing out that these ideas are wrong. Additionally, spreading them is harmful. Got 2 super chats.
Yeah.
Tachbet with a very capital P, which should not be there because it's a spelling mistake. Or 200 Argentinian pesos says aliens genetically engineered humans, and aliens engineered aliens, and aliens engineered aliens, and so on and so forth. I mean, it does. That is the thing, right? If Billy Carson doesn't believe in evolution, then where does it start? How do you get organisms ultimately? Like, what's the basic level where you start with organisms? Is there a god that created the aliens from billions of years ago that have just been creating more and more life forms ever since? I don't know. Heather Bodacious Claims Coon for $5 says, I'd argue that sexual selection is a subset of natural selection. I think that is a fair argument to make. I don't know that I would necessarily agree, but I think you could make a very compelling case for that. I think that is one of those places where very reasonable people can come to reasonable conclusions that are not the same. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, everyone knows that 19th century sources written with minimum data and maximum bias are the most reliable. It's true. It's a well-known fact. We actually have a term for it in history. I have a history degree, and we call it the old dead white guy factor. And if an old dead white guy said it, it becomes more truthy. It has more truthiness to it. Yep.
How the world works.
Mm-hmm. It especially helps if that guy was an upper-class British guy, and it especially helps if he really didn't like people of other races. Which, as it turns out, stuffy old dead British people from a century ago, really high tendency to not like other people from other races. So, like, you know.
You throw a stick, and you're liable to hit one.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in a graveyard from the appropriate time.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
And then the monkeys gradually turn into people, all right? It's laughable, okay?
Did monkeys ever gradually turn into people?
So I would argue that if we're going to use the word monkey in a sense that it maps onto a scientifically valid group of organisms, then humans are in fact monkeys.
Oh, okay.
So the problem is that we get into the difference between common terms versus scientific terms, right? So human terms often don't make a whole lot of sense if you think about it in terms of biological classification. And an example I give is actually the word Gentile. Because really it means everyone except one small group. Which is weird, because if you think about it like in terms of like scientific matters, that doesn't really mean much, right? Because there are certainly groups that would be genetically or linguistically or even religiously closer to the group that is excluded by Gentile, being Jews, than they would be to other groups that will be included in Gentile. Like, there are clearly people living in the Middle East right now who are both genetically, linguistically, and religiously closer to being to the Jews than, say, are, I don't know, some ethnic Han Chinese person living in, like, Shanghai. And yet they're both lumped into one term that would seem to make them more similar. And so that is an example where, because there's a certain speaking group that needs a term to refer to some group that isn't really a natural group, but still makes sense in that cultural context, we have a word there. And monkey is kind of like this. We tend to use it to mean non-ape simiiform animal. But by saying non-ape, we're artificially excluding one group of simiiforms that are actually in that group. And so some monkeys are closer to being apes than they are to other monkeys. So, for instance, a baboon is much more closely related to an ape than a capuchin monkey is, even though we call baboons and capuchin monkeys both monkeys. So, in a strictly scientific sense, where we say that monkey basically equals simiiform, then humans are monkeys. If we want to keep the non-scientific basis and say that humans aren't monkeys for that reason, then it would be true to say that humans evolved from monkeys, because their common ancestor with other old world monkeys would have been a monkey. You could say that in that sense, in the colloquial sense, they stopped being monkeys, although they didn't stop being simiiforms. So it's kind of complicated in that sense. But I would not object to saying that humans evolved from monkeys, as long as we understand that apes are monkeys and humans are apes. A good question, in other words. All right, we got a few more super chats. Let's see. Mayan finished sock for $6.66 says, "Don't imprison a Hebrew scholar in your love dungeon. Like and share the stream instead."
Amazing.
I won't. Lieutenant Math the Navigator for $5. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say you wouldn't be in on that one.
Lieutenant Math the Navigator for $5 says, "The binomial for such sources is Truthiomimus bullshitty."
Truthiomimus, yeah, like that.
Mayan Finished Journey for $2, who's also number 3 in chat for what that's worth, says, "Also, Lawrence of Milwaukee Atheists wants in."
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Lawrence
All
is
right.
good people.
And then let me update the funding thing to see if Vent gets free pizza. Although, based on Jordan's recent super chat, pizza might turn into tacos today if we get it.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do with a few more lengua tacos.
Man.
Here's the thing. If I go get tacos and lengua is an option, I am almost certainly getting at least one lengua taco.
My kids bought sushi yesterday, and I got leftover, but it was kid sushi, right? So it was like salmon rolls, and
Salmon
I think
rolls
there
are
was
good.
they're okay. It's not what I would buy, but
Yeah.
And there was my one of my kids is vegetarian, so he had, well, no, 2 of my kids are vegetarians. So, and the other one doesn't eat sushi. Actually, only one of them eats sushi, and he's a vegetarian. So he got like mango rolls with something else in them.
Look, mango and
It was
rice
fine.
is not a bad combo.
It's not. It's good.
Yeah.
I was pleased.
Yeah.
It was all right.
It's
Not enough.
when you
I didn't get enough tuna though.
Sorry. You'll have to go to the tuna store and buy some more tuna.
understand genetics and you understand, basic, just
Billy
basic life
understands genetics, I'm
sciences,
sure,
basic
right?
biology.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
becomes almost laughable.
What specifically about genetics or basic biology would be a problem here, Billy? Like, I'm curious, because the thing is, we have a pretty we have a very well characterized human genome, and we have almost as well, but not quite as well characterized chimpanzee genome for the common chimpanzee, and we have less well characterized genomes for other apes, like the bonobo or the various gorilla and orangutan species. And no geneticist working in this field who hasn't already decided for dogmatic theological reasons that this isn't going to work out. None of them have actually proposed any problems that there should be, and the problems that are proposed by those people who have that dogmatic theological bias against accepting the evidence, the problems that they put forth never actually check out as real problems. So I would be curious to know, since Billy's here, like Kip said, is claiming the mantle of biology understander, I'm very curious which biological problems there are for this, because there aren't any. The difference between humans and other apes are all down to mutations. And there's some epigenetic differences, but that's also something that we know how that works too. So, like, which is it? Are mutations? Does Billy think that mutations are impossible? Does he think that mutations can affect fitness and therefore can't be selected for? Does he think that epigenetics is fake, so therefore we can't have epigenetic differences in the expression of certain genes based on, which population you're a part of? Which is it? What do you think? You think he's just not going to tell us?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Sorry, Maya's also reminding me that I had tempura yams last night, which I think she thinks is weird, but they're really good.
Tach with a very capital P says, a linguist is a proponent of linguism, which is the love of tacos de lengua. Ergo, Dapper Dinosaur is a linguist. I don't think that actually is how those words work, but I can't prove it wrong. So maybe that's how that works. Look, if all that a linguist means is someone who, when they get tacos, likes to get lengua tacos, I will admit I am a linguist in that case. Have you had lengua tacos?
No, what are those?
Oh, they're beef tongue. And that's the meat is beef tongue. Yeah, it's really, really
Is it good? Is it really
delicious?
good?
Yeah.
Really?
So the thing is,
Wow.
beef tongue is a fairly tough meat, which means the only real way to cook it is to cook it very slowly usually in water, right? You're going to simmer it with spices and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so ideally this is going to be cooked just on simmering for hours and hours and hours and hours. And all the tough stuff is going to dissolve and render out. and it's going to absorb all the spicy flavors that you've cooked it in. And then it's just going to be this tender, juicy meat that you can cut up into little chunks
Wow.
and put on your taco. And it's really
So, do I have to come to like Southern California or Arizona
I think that the
or New
best,
Mexico to
and
get
freshest
tacos?
and most qualified preparers of that will be in the Southwest, particularly in like Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, and the Texas border.
Although right now I might suggest going to the Mexican side of those borders. It might be easier to get into and out of. And also, I mean, ICE did recently kill a Canadian. So, like, you know.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But also, stick to the touristy parts of Mexico. Like, you know, go to, like, Mexico City and whatnot, you know. Because you also don't want to run into cartel problems. So there's a few things.
There's a local vice mayor. I know that sounds like a weird title, but that's the thing. A local vice mayor in the LA Orange County area. No, San Bernardino. Doesn't matter. Recently took a lot of heat for apparently encouraging cartels to protect people against kidnappings by the ICE raids.
That is the kind of thing I will express my opinion on like maybe Signal or something. Because if it's good enough to spread a whole bunch of classified DoD information, it's good enough for me to Fed post on. Takpa asks if I've tried pickled beef tongue. I don't think so. But also, hey, Vishanti's fundraiser is currently, right now, in the...
Distracted and not engaging with the chat. I had to actually, like, copy my little accountability spreadsheet in there and do all the stuff. So if you want to crunch the numbers, those are my monthly expenses linked in there. So there you go.
But yeah, so if you want to help, the fundraiser is now linked in the description. I will be putting it in the chat. So there you go. And donations there will count towards stream goals today for things like
Did you pin it? You should pin it.
I will pin it. So that will count for things like Bent gets free pizza or fancy avatars or tacos, yeah.
Remember, if you don't meet the Bent gets free pizza goal, then he starves.
It's true. Well, unless someone gives him things from his wish list, which Joshua Geese did.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are the only two ways.
I think a lot of us are starting to change our names to like sponsored by Joshua Geese.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go.
Then we have the Lucy Enigma.
I wonder what the actual Enigma is.
Lucy Enigma, that sounds like a cool book.
Oh,
it does actually,
also,
or the name Hominid. Of a band. Yeah.
We have so far we haven't had Ad Hominid yet. We're probably getting there. But also we've had very few drink triggers. No, not enough people have been telling dick jokes. No more dick jokes, everybody.
Okay. Or posting kaiju.
Yeah.
All right, Lucy. Lucy was a hominid discovered. And so Lucy was...
Technically, that is correct information. We'll take a drink for... That's true. She was a hominid that was discovered.
In fact, a hominid that was discovered, yeah. Mm-hmm. He got that right.
That is correct.
Found by Donald...
No, ONB, don't send rice to Dapper. You can send rice to me anytime you want. But
yeah, I have...
Dapper's good on rice for a while.
I still have enough rice. Actually, I'll probably open up more rice donations here in the next few months because I'm on my second to last bag, and it's mostly gone. So
I've been making prodigious use of the rice cooker that chat got me. So do not worry. I have been making the most of that little kitchen appliance.
Oh yeah, my rice maker sees pretty heavy use.
Yeah.
I think
I need to clean.
It was the right choice, by the way, to go with the larger bowl size.
Oh, yeah.
So congrats on the chat for convincing me to get the larger.
Kip doesn't have a rice maker.
I do have a rice maker.
You do? I'm surprised.
Sorry, I was distracted.
You seem far too
window
white to have a rice maker.
Trapped. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. No.
I mean, I'm rice makers more than perhaps other groups.
I don't know. I usually
making them by the pot.
I usually think that if I'm going to find a rice maker in someone's kitchen, they're probably either going to be East or Southeast Asian, or they're going to be like Latino. That's usually what I think.
We've been replacing our rice maker like probably every 2 or 3 years, just because it gets worn out.
Yeah.
I have. So I'll remind
My
you.
last one. I had it for like 2 years.
Two of my children are vegetarians,
Okay, yeah, I forgot about
and
that.
they eat a shit ton of rice.
Yeah, that checks out.
Good. Yeah.
All right.
Goopdo3 says it was the rice choice.
Hansen and Tom Gray on November 24th in 1974. Pretty recent. At the site of Hadar in Ethiopia. I was a little toddler when this happened.
I mean,
in terms of like the history of science, it's somewhat
the
recent.
universe, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, it's much more recent than
know.
the publication of The Origin of Species.
Right. The foundational text.
Right, which is, to be fair, where we started.
So, sure. If I'm putting this, and you know, the numbers kind of track here, within my field, the foundational text is probably Wellhausen's Prolegomena to the History of Israel. Which was published, I believe, within 7 or 8 years.
Misinterpretations. Just said
and
that.
I'm still talking, Vish. And I, you know, anything that was published in 1974, I'm like, I'm raising an eyebrow to that as like recent. I don't know. It's
the thing is, recent is relative.
It's 50 years ago.
I was on stream and I said to Vishanti that the existence of planocranids was actually fairly recent, and that was about like 12 million years ago that they went extinct or something.
But
so like, you know,
sure.
Recent is relative. It depends.
It's on a
Yeah, so I was going to say,
though.
Misinterpretation says that their rice maker is older than me. I strongly doubt that.
Yeah, I don't.
You probably underestimate my age, which is a compliment.
Yeah,
that's a nice thing to say.
I happen to know Vishanti's birth year, and I'm not sure that there were home appliance rice makers that were a dedicated rice maker in that before that year.
And there might have been, but I somehow suspect that yours is not, in fact, older than me. I could be wrong, but
Sapphire Science Nimby's Light, who's been a member for 37 months and is at the amniote level, says Drank and Sons of Godzilla, a Mothra, an AIG's a Bag of Dicks, a Deal with the Darwin, a Vishanti, a Dapper, and also a Maple Leaf, which I presume is for Kip. We'll take a drink for that.
It's the holiday weekend, by the way.
It is. Yep.
Here in Canada.
Are you planning to buy some beaver steaks and some maple syrup to put on them?
No, but you know what I am doing on Tuesday?
Eating a bunch of moose.
It's gonna be 28 degrees and sunny. Okay. So I'm going mountain biking.
Nice. And then you're gonna celebrate with moose tips.
Probably
are we doing like roast cobra chicken, perhaps?
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, you can't catch and kill those things.
You know, I made some teriyaki moose tips once, and it was delicious.
I bet.
Yeah, cousin of mine had
I actually don't think I've ever had
moose meat. Really?
I don't think so.
I mean,
unless I have a friend who's killed one, and I don't think I do. I don't think I've had it.
You should get on that. Moose has some good meat in there. I mean, I generally like venison, so like whatever.
I was a little kid when this happened. They had taken a Land Rover out that day to map in another locality.
I just want to point out, none of this is actually relevant to anything that he's trying to make a point about. I don't know why he's giving it to us.
He's narrating this to us.
But yeah, it's like, hey, did you know about the history of this find? Tell us what about the find you think is problematic for the story of human evolution. And I bet that none of it is that they found it in a Land Rover. I bet that has no bearing whatsoever.
Hang on. Misinterpretation says Oster double-decker rice and veggie steamer circa 96. Yeah, no, I'm older than that.
Yeah.
My birth year is prior to 1996, but I am very flattered.
Yeah, way to look like you're very young.
Very nice.
Another long, hot morning of mapping and surveying for fossils. They decided to head back to the vehicle. Johansson suggested taking an alternate route back to the Land Rover through a nearby gully. Within moments, he spotted a right proximal ulna, which is a forearm bone, and he quickly identified it as a hominid.
He got it right with that.
Shortly thereafter, he saw an occipital bone, which is, the bone right here underneath the eye socket. This is your occipital, right?
No, that is not right. That bone is
No.
your zygomatic. Your occipital bone is the back of your skull.
That's awesome.
Does
he mean your orbital? Those are close to where your orbital bones are, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean your zygomatic.
Is that what he means?
Your zygomatic bone is part of like the margin of your orbit.
Odd.
I think he thinks that because occipital is in fact related to like ocular, and that those are in fact similar words, that means that your occipital bone is around your eye. In fact, it's actually named after the occipital region of your brain.
The occipital lobe.
Yeah. Those are connected there. So I don't know why Billy thinks that. I just want to point out, Billy is someone who said that if you know even the most basic things about biology, that you will see how silly evolution is. And clearly, Billy does not know the most basic things about biology.
Funny that this thing says occipital skull bone, and he just assumed it was this part of your skull, and I'm like, no, honey, that's the wrong part.
Yep.
The back, whatever.
Maybe what actually happened is that the Anunnaki moved what used to be the bones in the back of the skull up to the eyeballs, and we just haven't noticed yet. And that was part of the genetic engineering.
Okay.
Maybe that's what that is. It's Billy. Bye.
And then the femur, which we know what that is. That's in the leg, right?
Yes, Billy, it is in the leg. Good job, buddy.
It's in the leg, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Do you know which bone it is in the leg, Billy? Do you know that?
Some ribs in the pelvis and lower right jaw. 2 weeks later, after many hours of excavation, screening, and sorting, several hundred fragments of bone have been recovered, representing 40% of a single hominid skeleton. And
I want to point out that because hominins are bilaterians and therefore bilaterally symmetrical, which is the case for most bilaterians, echinoderms are an exception, so don't at me about echinoderms, I know. That if you have 40% of a skeleton, you can mirror that. And while you're not going to get exactly 80%, because some of what you have is already going to be mirrored, like look at that jaw, you're going to get over half of the skeleton. We know what over half of Lucy's skeleton looked like just from just from her. We don't even need to go to other conspecifics.
Look at the pelvic cradle and the femur. You can just flip that over, and then right below that you have a few like lower leg bones. You can just mirror those over to the other side, and you would have almost a complete set of legs.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you have a femur from one side, and you have parts of the tibia and fibula from the other side. You basically have a full leg right there. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, maybe the Moopsie drank her occipital and she replaced it with the zygomatic. Yeah, you know what? That is the sort of thing a Moopsie might do. You gotta watch out for those Moopsies. They'll get you. They'll drink your bones.
My goodness.
You might wonder, how does someone drink a bone? And to that, I would say, watch a Moopsie feed, because then you will learn, and it's unpleasant. Yeah.
Yeah, drinking a bone sounds very cursed. Not gonna lie.
Well, hey, if you're ever in the Star Trek universe, you got to watch out for Moopsies. So, yeah. And if anyone
noted.
Yes, watch out. If you ever see a small, furry, doe-eyed creature that says its own name like it's Pokemon, and it happens to be Moopsie, you should kill it immediately, lest it drink your bones.
On sight. With these little guys. Okay,
yep.
I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
They will drink your bones.
Okay. Good to know.
Yep. All right, and where are we? We are 13 out of 30 super chats to unleash Kip. At this rate, we might not unleash him, or it might not be until the very end.
Wow.
Poor Kip. He's gonna have to just go around the house screaming,
bottle it up,
all the F-bombs, just to release the tension afterwards.
Yeah.
And so this is Lucy
a normal
here.
Saturday for me.
At this rate, yeah. When we weren't sure if the next video we were going to cover would be one that Kip would be interested in helping to cover, he was like, "What am I going to do with my Saturday? This has become my routine."
I was actually ready to go back to Blasphemer's Bible before you hit me up with this. So
that tells me that I am higher priority than the Blasphemer's Bible.
I didn't say it.
I know you
didn't. Is Lawrence watching? I didn't say it. I did not.
Somebody's going to clip that, and it's going to go like.
I didn't say
viral.
You said to me. I said what I took from that, or what I understood there. That says to me. Mm-hmm.
Because
on
what
the-
he took from it might not have been what you said or intended.
It's true. I inferred something that you might not have implied.
These things happen.
left, and they've extrapolated and created a face for
Just
this
drink
thing.
for
And it looks like a monkey
extrapolated.
I'm
person. They put hair all over the
extrapolated.
body and all that. They have no idea what this being looked like. They just know that it did walk upright and it was a woman, based
We're
a female.
looking at the bones.
Yeah.
What do you mean we don't have any idea what it
No
looks like?
idea. None.
Dutch, the place of hostilities.
None at all.
Tunicate for $5 says, back from vacation, got a beta for my established 5-gallon tank, watching some Dapper. Life's okay right now. With a bunch of, well, 3 pelagic tunicates emojis. Yeah, gross. But then also a Godzilla emoji. We take a drink. I almost said Godzilla tunicate. You know what? Now I need someone to make some fan art of what would Godzilla look like if he were a tunicate. Yeah. Where would the atomic breath come out?
The equivalent of the rear, I assume.
Yeah, tunicates don't super work that way, though. At least not adult
Which
tunicates.
means that it would have to be pelagic because those move around. So,
Gross.
just saying, pelagic tunicate.
No.
Right, maybe.
I saw a short about a salp recently on here on YouTube. And as this person held a salp out of the water, I was like, "Yep, nope, it looks exactly like the sex toy. That's just what it is. You're just living. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says extrapolated. Also, his definition of idea appears to be identical for Dr. James Tour's definition of clue.
Yeah. Maniac.
All right, we are going to end this poll now that we have 90 votes. That might be the most highly voted in poll that I have ever taken on this channel.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. I want to say a very special thank you to all y'all who've done that. So, is there a joke about Kip cursing that he's not in on? Turtle won at 47%. Next came yes at 28%. And then no at 23%. So there might be a joke.
I don't know if this makes me.
I don't know what the
feel
joke
better.
is.
Yeah.
Well, if Fish doesn't know, I doubt there's a joke.
Well, Fish doesn't know everything. She just knows most of the
Yeah, that doesn't always
Um,
hold true.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Actually, in terms of how we know what things look like. So here's the thing, right? Muscles attached to bones, generally speaking, in like vertebrates with bones. Not all vertebrates have bones, but they at least attach to the skeleton in vertebrates broadly. Now Kip is trying to think of vertebrates that don't have bones. Here's a hint, Kip. Sharks, rays, skates, dogfish. Those are some vertebrates that don't have bones. I could tell that that's what that look was. Kip, like, wait a minute.
This is the processing wheel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. See a little like it's like Kip's brain is buffering right now. Like, hold on, loading.
Wait a minute.
Loading.
Yeah.
So yeah, but even in those vertebrates that don't have bones, the muscles still attached to the skeleton. It's just that in that case they're cartilage instead of bone. And skeletons have attachment points for muscles. And if you know where a muscle starts and where it ends, and you can see how big those attachment points are, it dramatically restrains how big the muscle can be in all dimensions. Which means that if you have a skeleton, you can drape it in muscles very accurately, just from the skeleton. And then on top of that, you can make reasonable assumptions about things like fat deposits, integumentary structures like skin, hair, feathers, scales, whatnot. And
That's
from
how
there,
a lot of the forensic reconstruction works. You can find the skeleton of an unidentified John or Jane Doe, and you can make a pretty accurate reconstruction of what that person might have looked like in life. Barring like eye and hair color, obviously.
So while Billy might not be able to give you a good idea as to what a creature like Lucy would have looked like just based on the skeleton, that's because he's not an anatomist. And people who are trained in comparative anatomy actually can give you a pretty good idea of what an animal like this would look like. And also, when he says that she's a woman, I want to point out, woman is a social construct of humans, which is a different species to what Lucy is. Lucy was probably female. We have a good idea of that because we found both male and female skeletons of her species elsewhere. And she's both of this right size and right skeletal proportions to be what seems like the female sex of that species. So we have a pretty good idea that she's female, but calling her a woman is a little bit weird, right? It's like calling your female dog a woman. It's like, I wouldn't do that. That's weird. So no, not really a woman in any reasonable sense.
I was going to say, interpretations is like, doesn't Billy Carson watch Bones? TV
He
show
might
all
not.
about forensic reconstruction?
He might not. I don't know. I didn't watch it.
I've never seen that show.
I think I might have seen an episode.
I've never seen an episode. Wasn't my
Based off
thing.
of its bone structure, right? So in the pelvis, and so it was an upright hominid. Now we've found dozens of upright hominids on this.
Which, by the way, is the thing that evolution predicts, and that Anunnaki made humans out of apes doesn't predict. Right? You can't get from the Anunnaki genetically engineered apes into humans to therefore saying, therefore we should find the fossils of upright walking hominids from millions of years ago up through until hundreds of thousands of years ago. Right? There should be basically nothing in that area. Then suddenly modern humans emerge with no obvious antecedents if it's just genetic engineering from apes. So I don't know what Billy thinks the prediction is, but that would be my prediction from what Billy is stating is what he thinks happened.
This planet of various different types. There's been different types of hominids that can walk upright, bipedal, bilateral hominids on this planet for a very, very, very long time.
Does he think there have been any non-bilateral hominids? Like, just limbs sticking out of random
Don't
places?
want to know what that would look like. That's too cursed.
It's like, it's kind of like the Final Pam, except instead of the face parts going all over the place, it's just limbs sticking all out everywhere.
Yeah, it's a
There's
Monster
leg.
Factory creation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you ever played Spore, you can turn off symmetry and then just add legs and arms wherever the heck you want. I imagine it will be a little bit like that too. Ever played Spore? Which I liked Spore, although it was hamstrung by EA because EA sucks.
This is just one of the ones that they found that they believe may be one of the oldest. They found this.
Nope, not even close to the oldest. If you want to find the oldest hominins, you're looking for things like Ardipithecus or Sahelanthropus, things like that, right? Where they're so old that it's actually hard to tell for certain that they are actually hominids. They do seem to be, but you're basing that on very minor distinctions in place, things like the placement of the foramen magnum, which is the hole in the skull where your spine goes in. So yeah, Lucy is not close to the oldest hominid. She is one of the earliest discovered reasonably complete hominins. But yeah, Australopithecus is a genus that didn't evolve until pretty well into the history of the split between the human lineage and the chimpanzee lineage. And then Tahpet for 100, with a very capital P, which again, spelling error, for 100 Argentinian peso says, what Dapper is trying to say, I believe, is that Lucy was non-binary. Happy Pride. Well, first, Happy Pride. Also, I don't think
We still got a few days left.
Yep, we do. We do. Also, you can say Happy Pride like whenever. That's fine by me.
That's true.
Just because June is Pride Month, it doesn't mean that the spirit of Pride has to abandon you like you're a U.S. corporation.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Woo.
Although this year, even the corporations have been like,
Yeah, even they were like, you know what, we're not even going to pretend this time.
yeah.
Target couldn't even be bothered to put actual text instead of placeholder text in the labels inside their Pride clothing, so...
Yeah, they actually ended up printing lorem ipsum.
Lorem ipsum.
Yeah. In case anyone doesn't know, lorem ipsum is a series of Latin sentences that are just nonsense. That's just there for typographers and whatnot to see how a block of text will look in a particular design without having to care what the content is. And they went to the printers with that.
It literally said header text, and then in the body, lorem ipsum dolor sit amet, and it just went on, and everyone's like, okay,
Yeah.
well.
It's not great.
In Ethiopia. And no matter where you go on this planet, you'll find that there were hominids, upright walking hominids on this planet all around the same time.
No, you won't. You won't find them in
What?
Antarctica or Australia or the Americas. Or actually even in Eurasia at the time of Lucy. Around Lucy's time, hominins were exclusive to Africa. Later, Homo erectus spread into Eurasia and went into some of the Pacific Islands. Doesn't seem to have made it to Australia. And then eventually, Homo neanderthalensis made it to parts of like Western Eurasia, and the Denisovans made it to parts of Central and Eastern Asia. And then Homo sapiens came out, and they finally made it to places like Australia and the Americas. But we don't have any examples of any non-Homo sapiens hominins anywhere outside of Africa and Eurasia, and the various Pacific islands that are close enough to Eurasia to have had like land bridges in most cases, or to have been easily like you can float on some mats of vegetation to get to. Although there is some idea that Homo
Suborbital
erectus,
platypus.
well, yeah. There has been some idea that maybe Homo erectus could have made primitive watercraft, like maybe a dugout canoe, or just, stick some logs together. That's still a bit on the speculative side, though. So we're not sure. So we are going to check the fundraiser real quick, and then we're going to take a quick break. I'm not seeing any contributions yet, but hey, help out Vishanti, because we don't want Vishanti to go end up being homeless while trying to get another job here. So... and for $5, Lieutenant Math Navigator says, Purgatorius, famously a hominid. Yeah, no, Purgatorius, not a hominid. Instead, although to be fair, Purgatorius is from North America, because it turns out that primates originated in North America, much like rhinos and horses. So, yeah, North America is the origin place for and camels, for a lot of groups of animals that do not occur in North America anymore. Or at least not until very recently. And then they just went extinct in North America.
Maybe we should, rename it to, the Old World, and then call Europe the New World when it comes to those animals.
Well, yeah, in terms of those animals, that would actually be more accurate. Kent the Bacteria Kind Halstead for $4.99 says, Creationists discuss biogeography challenge. Yeah, no, that's an impossible challenge. They will never do that. They can't. They just can't. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We are at 18 out of 30 super chats to get Kip Unleashed. So when we come back, let's see if we can get those final 12. And in the meantime, though, please enjoy the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind. All right, everybody, we are back. So first, I want to say thank you for being with us. We don't even have to bilbo anyone today, which is great. So I really appreciate everyone who's hit like, everyone who's super chatted, all that stuff. And I want to say that this channel is primarily supported through the direct donations and financial support of viewers. We're kind of like like PBS that way, except that I don't get any government funding. In fact, the government takes money from the channel. So, if you would
I was
like,
on PBS once.
were you? I was on the military channel once.
Oh, fun! I've never been on the military channel.
It was okay. I didn't
know
watch it.
there was a military channel. Is it a government-run channel?
No, but the government sort of gives them their blessing because they always make the United States military look good. So,
and you were on it.
Yes,
Wow.
I was. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Oh,
You're making the government look good.
Well, I guess I was just doing my job. Like literally, they filmed me just doing my job, and I was like, okay, cool.
Awesome.
This is for the military channel. I'm like, okay. And then people ask me like, hey, did you see that you were on the military channel? I was like, nope, but I knew that I was going to be. Like, what? Why didn't you watch it? It was because it's an entire like hour-and-a-half long documentary about where I work. Like, if you work at McDonald's, would you watch an hour-and-a-half documentary about what it's like to work at McDonald's? No. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So anyway, if this channel is something that you feel like is valuable and something that you're getting something out of, and you want to see it continue in the way that it is doing now, or maybe even improve, or at the very least, just not go away, there are a couple really important ways that you could do that. One is the Patreon. It is linked in the description. Also, both Kip and Vish have their own Patreons if you want to support them more directly. On my Patreon, it starts at $1 a month. You can get a 15% discount if you pledge annually. You get access to my Discord server that is just for people who support the channel. It is a great community over there. They are extremely friendly, helpful, supportive. And yeah, it's a great time over there. You also get early access to my scripted videos. The video that we most recently premiered on this channel was this past Thursday. That thing was made at the beginning of November 2024. So think about how long ago that is and how many videos would have been released during that time. And like, that's about how many videos you have that you could watch. So, yeah, there's a lot of videos out there. There's also the channel memberships. There's a button right below this channel that says join. That starts at $1.99. There's no annual discount. But in addition to getting the Discord and the early access, just like the Patreon members, you'll also get a green name here in chat. You get a cool little chat badge, as well as access to the channel emojis, which you've already seen plenty of today. Both of those are really helpful. If that's not your thing, there's also always super chats, super thanks, gifting memberships, super stickers. There's a merch store below this that also you can go get stuff at. And also, if you don't have anything in the budget that you are willing to spare, there's also an option if you want to help me get my animations done in a timely fashion. There's a render farm that I use. It is a distributed render farm that does not cost money, but instead requires users to render for the render farm when they do not actively need things rendered for them. And so the way it works is when other people render my animations, it costs me points. When I render other people's animations, I gain points. And if you want to help me gain points, follow those instructions. You go to the website listed, download the version of the client that works for your operating system, use that login, and then that will use either CPU or GPU cycles to render for me. And that will give me those points. That is another great way to help me out. And I can't say it's free because, if you're paying an electric bill, it'll cost you some electricity, but not much more than running a video game. So, like, if you think of running a video game as not really an expense you're budgeting for, this really isn't one of those either. So, there you go. With that, though, I think we are ready to get back into this. And we are 11 super chats away from unleashing Kip, which means we could actually get an unleashed Kip here in not too long.
Happen.
It could happen.
Been bilboed.
No, we weren't bilboed.
So
I didn't like the stream, by the way.
You didn't like what?
I didn't like the stream.
What dream?
Stream.
Stream.
Oh, stream.
Yeah.
Dream. I was like, what are we talking about? Are we doing dream journals now? One in the chat if you want. One in the chat if you want us to read our dream journals. 2 in the chat if you think that sounds lame.
I don't want to take any glory away from Lucy, but Lucy is nothing special. And Lucy definitely didn't come from an ape.
Lucy is an ape.
From an ape.
I'm just gonna take a drink. This obvious ape didn't come from an ape. Like, what did it come from then? And see, that's another question.
I guess special's relative too, right?
Well, yeah, like, is Lucy special? She's not special as a member of her species. She's special in terms of her place in the history of the study of human evolution, right? Like, she's not the most complete hominin we have. She's not the only one we have. If all data retrieved from her were just to be deleted, we actually wouldn't lose that much at this point because we found so many other specimens. So on the one hand, yeah, Lucy isn't that special now, but she's special. She was special in terms of when she was found, because at that point she was by far one of the best specimens we had of any hominin. And also she's special in terms of how that affected the later history of the search for human ancestors. So yeah. Also, we got very few votes in terms of ones or twos in the chat. We got 1, 1, 2, and then also a 3, which wasn't one of the options. Roshan, a local line standard compare Keller for 199 says Lucy is Fae. That she could be. I can't rule out that she might be one of the Fae. I also have not updated the tracker here to see if Bent gets free pizza and or tacos. Actually, it's or tacos. It's not and or. If there's free food, it's not going to be both pizza and tacos. He's going to have to pick one.
They're trying to say that this links us back to the monkeys, because the apes, because it's an upright, but
we just got $30 donated to the fundraiser, so we're adding 30 for the GoFundMe. And actually,
right.
I have the
Thank you.
GoFundMe donation set to count as 1.2 times their actual value. So there we go. We're doing that.
Thank you to Anonymous and to Sapphire Light. I am deeply appreciative of your generosity.
All right, here we go.
skull is smaller and the body is different, and the nose and the mouth and the jawline is different. So this connects us. This is this jump between apes and humans. No.
Sorry, the jawline is different.
Yeah, I don't know what he means by that, but also I would wonder if you said to Billy, okay, Billy, let's pretend. I know you don't think it's true, but let's pretend that human evolution from apes is true. I want you to draw what animal you think would have had to exist in the middle of that transition. And then I want to know what it would look like if it wouldn't look like an Australopithecus. Because that's one of those things, right? Like, he's doing the exact same thing that young Earth creationists do. They'll just say, well, it doesn't look that transitional to me. And then it's like, well, what would look transitional if not this? Because this is exactly what not only would look transitional if I had to come up with it, but also what was predicted by other people who did actually answer that question with what they thought a transitional form would look like, and it looks like this. So, like, what are we missing here? Oh, Jack in the Box mini loaded tacos on top of Domino's pizza, says Roshan, a localized standard compare Keller for $4.99.
Man, I don't know. It's really difficult for me to think of Jack in the Box tacos as tacos because they just put a slice of American cheese in there, and really, come on.
Look, here's the thing. I think of it sort of like how I think about Taco Bell, right? Nothing in there is Mexican in any significant way. Those tacos aren't really very much like tacos at all, even the soft ones. But here's the other thing. I don't really care, because sometimes I want some Taco Bell, and I don't care that my Chalupa Supreme with a hard-shelled taco coated in Doritos dust isn't very authentically Mexican. It's a bunch of meat and cheese and other fats and spicy sauces.
Very authentically American.
Exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
By the way, we don't have Jack in the Box here in Canada.
We don't even have Jack in the Box most parts of the USA.
You don't have Jack in the Box in the USA?
What are you talking about? A lot of it, I said.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Jack in the Box is
regional. That it's not
we
called
have Taco Bell
in the Box.
Yeah, right. we have Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
But before Taco Bell, all we had was Taco Time. Do you guys have Taco Time, or is that a Canadian thing? And Taco Time is far superior to Taco Bell. They're harder to find now because of all the Taco Bells, which is a shame.
RIP Canadian taco industry.
Yeah.
Although, I'll be honest, if I were in Canada, tacos would not be at the top of my list of foods that I would be like, oh, I have to go get some tacos while I'm here.
I don't know. Anywhere I am, tacos is pretty well at the top of the list of what I'm.
I mean,
what I
but
need
also,
to eat.
you and I have both eaten tacos here in Southern California, and they were delicious.
Yes.
So
yes,
you can't just enjoy good tacos anywhere. Like,
It's
you can
true.
have tacos anywhere, but it doesn't mean they're good.
Yeah.
I listen. All tacos are good tacos in my experience, but there are some tacos that are clearly much, much better than other tacos.
There is a few things here. One is there has now another $100 on the go or the fundraiser. So
Awesome.
that has been added to the value of the
Thank
stream.
you to Named Meat and John Hopkins. That was very generous.
Also,
you.
we have a few super chats. Jillian Underwater Land Bridge Wren for $5. Kip, did you hear about the underwater land bridge?
I didn't.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We're looking at a creationist talking about like sea level rises and falls. It was Kent actually, and he's talking about how like the continental crust between the North American and the Eurasian plate is basically continuous around the Bering Strait, and then said, "See, it's an underwater land bridge," and was like, "Well, it's either a land bridge or it's underwater. That's like it can't be
underwater
both."
bridge.
You could say it's a former land bridge that's now underwater, but you can't just say it's an underwater land. Like, no. I'm sorry, no. But anyway, Jillian Wren for $5 says, have some money I didn't have to spend on driving my van to and from Bremerton last weekend. I still think this should have been next week's freedom. Well, thank you very much. And yeah, look, I have driven back and forth between Seattle and Bremerton many a times, and it is not my favorite drive. In fact, when I finally moved out of where I was.
Where's Bremerton?
Bremerton is across Puget Sound from Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I eventually moved to a place that was within walking distance of the Bremerton to Seattle ferry, and then I exclusively took the ferry, often on foot, not even bringing my car. Yep.
Solid.
Late Night Kaiju for £5 sends a hiya. I believe that's a fox emoji, or well, super sticker.
Like a
like a
Shiba
fox.
Inu.
It could be a Shiba
Oh,
Inu.
yes.
Oh, you know, it does.
I
It
think
does
it's a
have the
Shiba
curly
Inu.
tail. I think you're right. I
Yeah.
think it is a Shiba Inu.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love
Huh?
sheeps.
All right. And then Lieutenant Math Navigator, who is currently in first place, which means that everyone needs to
Wow,
unseat
Matt.
him from the throne.
Wow.
For $5, says, as always, to the pseudoscientist, the answer to what would a transitional form look like is something different to what has been found. Yeah, no, that is exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No question.
whatever it is. It's nothing that you have ever found, and anything you will find won't be it either. John Hopkins for $5 says, unemployed as of yesterday because of
damn.
layoffs, but that just means that I have time to catch up on streams I missed. Well, I'm very sad to hear that. I hope that you can find a job quickly. I know that the job market is increasingly
Happened to me.
frustrating. So,
Yeah. Basically, what happened to me last January is the nonprofit that I was working for had their budget cut drastically by millions of dollars. And I know that because I saw the numbers.
Mm.
And they laid off like a third of the office in one day. So they knew we weren't exactly happy about that, but they gave us like at least some kind of severance package, which held me off for a few months. Because, like, as you all know, the cost of living in Southern California is astronomically high, which is ridiculous.
yeah.
So if the number for my fundraiser looks a bit steep, it's because it's not just like a month worth of support, it's 3 just in case. So, woo! I feel for you, man. I'm there. I know what you feel like, John.
Yeah, it's not it's not a
Get
good
another
time.
gig soon.
I did actually quit a job right before COVID hit, and if I hadn't done it then, I would have had to, because I wasn't going to be flying around the country during that. So I was a little worried, because I was like, if this whole YouTube thing isn't going to work out, what job can I possibly get right now?
Man, it's tough in these streets.
Yeah. So all right, here we go.
Mhm.
False. This planet was so colorful in deep antiquity, millions of years ago.
What does that mean?
What's he talking about?
The planet? I don't know. The planet was colorful millions of years ago. I don't know what that means. Like
Does
I
it mean
looked
that-
outside and
that
I
they
see
used to-
colors.
They used to paint the statues.
Well, millions of years ago, there shouldn't have been any statues.
Oh, millions of years ago. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
True. He probably thinks there were statues millions of years
Maybe
ago.
he does. I don't know. That's a weird thing to say.
Ago, there were all kinds of hominids on this planet. Why?
And were they rainbow colored or something? Were they like Skittles? What do you...
Nobody can really truthfully answer that question. But the
Yes, Billy,
What
we
question?
can.
What's the
The
question?
question is, why were
What
there
is the question?
hominids? Why were there hominids? We can answer that question. It's called evolution, Billy. And the thing is, you're objecting to this primarily because you think humans were genetically engineered, but that doesn't explain where the other organisms come from, if not evolution. Is it just genetic engineering all the way down in an infinite regress all the way to the Big Bang, Billy? What is happening? What do you actually think the history of life is? Taking another drink. I don't understand what Billy is like. What is his actual idea beyond just humans aren't the result of evolution, which is itself a hypothesis that you could test separate from is evolution true broadly? Okay. Like, think about, we have genetically engineered organisms on this planet right now, right? Like, humans are genetically engineering various crop species, right? So if I come to a field of GM corn, does the existence of this GM corn somehow overturn the fact that teosinte is a grass that evolved in South America? I don't think so. I don't know how it could.
Oh, no. Okay.
No, in fact, yeah, you got the opposite there, Kip. So, like, what? This is the thing that really bugs me. At least with creationists, right? At least Kent Hovind has an idea for how life came about. That while I don't think it's very scientific, and I don't think there's any evidence for it, and I think there's lots and lots of evidence against it, it at least is an idea, right? You can point to it and say, this is what he thinks actually did happen. With Billy, though, I don't know what he thinks happened before the Anunnaki came, apparently. It's like he just has no thoughts about anything before when he thinks that the aliens came down looking for gold, which, by the way, Earth is a really stupid place to get gold if you are able to do interstellar travel. There are so many asteroids that are just chock full of more gold than you are ever likely to access on Earth, where you also don't have to go into Earth's gravity well or deal with stupid monkeys messing up your slave labor operations. There is no good reason to mine gold on Earth if you are an interstellar species. It's one of the reasons why alien invasion movies rarely make sense. It's like, what are they after on Earth they couldn't just get out in space easier and without having to deal with an entire planetary invasion? And unless the answer is biomass...
Isn't it water?
Sometimes water, but you can get lots of water
yeah.
outside of Earth. There are whole comets that are just made of water that you can just grab. And then there's no invasion. You don't have to fight any wars. The humans wouldn't even notice. Like, if a bunch of aliens hit up the Oort cloud to refill their water tanks, no one would know.
But maybe the aliens are just like the Viltrumites. They're just
dicks.
A bunch of bastards. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that is it. I don't know. It's... at least, I'll give it... You know what? Here's an alien invasion that I will give props to, and it's the one from the Halo games. Because it's completely irrational, but that's because it's a holy war that was created to cover up the fact that the religion that the people who started the holy war about isn't actually true, and they know it, and they're like, oh no, we need to do something. Quick, genocidal holy war. That'll keep our whole theocracy together. I'm like, you know what? That actually checks out. That makes sense. It's horrifying, but it makes sense internally to the narrative as to why you're on this genocidal campaign against the humans. Also, Billy has his mouse being captured. That's his mouse, by the way. That's not mine. My mouse isn't captured because I know how to do a presentation on a computer. Which is by not just capturing your cursor, unless you want it to be the little red dot so that you can highlight things, which he's also not doing. Lieutenant Math Navigator for $5 says, Christ, his mythology is less thought out than L. Ron Hubbard's. True. Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard has a better grasp on how to create a mythology than Billy Carson.
I mean,
although,
when you are a sci-fi writer...
Yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, he was a professional and prolific sci-fi author. So, you know. And a successful one. Although I've never read anything from him that I thought was particularly good. But that's okay. He was also writing for pulp magazines, where it was just like, churn out as much text as you possibly
keep writing.
Can.
Just don't stop
just
writing.
Keep on. Pump out as many words as you can. Doesn't matter that much.
Bones and the skulls have been found all over this planet. No matter where you go, you'll find them. I mean, they found...
That's, again, not true, but whatever.
And even in some remote island, they found little tiny, what we call hoblets or whatever.
He's talking about Homo floresiensis, which has been
I love the
nicknamed by the media.
specificity. Some island.
Yeah, it's Flores, which you can tell by the name. Homo floresiensis, the man from Flores.
Did he call it a hoblet?
A hobbit. He's trying to say hobbit. He might...
Oh,
Look, for all I know, Billy Carson isn't super familiar with, like, J.R.R. Tolkien. So, unlike with the word, like,
Fair.
extrapolate, which he should absolutely know how to say, I'm going to give him a pass on not knowing how to say the name of a fantasy species. Like, whatever. And, like, I don't know.
These little tiny beings were anatomically correct, but they were only an average of 3.
Correct.
What does that mean?
They were anatomically correct.
So normally I think of that in terms of toys, and it basically just means they got a dick, right? But in terms of an
By the
animal,
way-
if you find an animal, it's anatomically correct for that animal, because that's what anatomically correct is just being that animal and having the anatomy of that animal. I'm taking a drink for it was anatomically correct as if there were other options. You know what? I bet both Vishanti and Kip are also anatomically correct.
As far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have the
I
anatomy?
mean, I would also
I-
like to point out, Kip, if you're going to go see 28 years later, you need to be prepared for some exaggerated anatomy.
Oh yeah. I've heard about
Okay.
that.
That's all I'm going to say.
Mhm.
Got it. I'm
Yeah,
ready.
it turns out that there are laws
I don't
about
know if you are ready, but be
there
prepared for it.
there are laws about nudity and minors on film set together, but apparently there are no laws about prosthetics simulating nudity and minors on a film set together.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which
England.
weird loophole.
Love that.
I told you I'm going with my son, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says you've got to break a few eggs to make a hoblet. Oh,
Well done.
Yeah, that yes, sir.
Excellent.
Oh, man.
Excellent. Oh wow! And we only have 5 more super chats left. Although we also only have a half an hour left, so Kip being unleashed isn't going to mean a whole lot.
Feet tall.
Better than nothing.
So they found them too, right?
Okay.
And so there.
Do you think Billy realizes that that skeleton is over 1 million years younger than the Lucy skeleton, and so that saying at that time doesn't really mean what he thinks it means? If we're going to say like at that time is contemporaneous with Lucy, they were separated by like 1 million years. That's a pretty big time gap.
There's all kind of strange things going on in deep antiquity for whatever reason. Well, I'm going to tell you why. The reason
I would not call that deep
Oh.
antiquity, but okay.
Okay.
Okay, he's going to tell us why though.
is why
He's gonna
this
tell us the
version of
reason.
hominid won out. This Homo sapiens sapien that we are.
Mm-hmm.
It was because
Okay, so wait, he does think that Homo sapiens are hominids, which seems to imply that he thinks evolution is true, even though he doesn't. I'm so confused.
we were directed and given the opportunity to work out and be the dominant
Okay.
race on the planet. And the reason why might, depending on your mindset, it might disturb you a little bit.
Uh-oh, guys, this is going to be disturbing. We got Genesis going on here.
I'm going to read the Epic of Atrahasis.
Okay, never mind. That was a fake out. Genesis fake out, everybody. We're back to the Epic of Atrahasis, not Genesis. Don't worry.
Just a few
Wonder why
important
it's not even
lines
Atrahasis.
because you really need to understand the
Billy was himself just buffering right there.
Yeah. I've noticed that a lot with some of these types.
origins of a lot of this information. And let me give you the real skinny on where hominids came from. Share screen.
No, but
Hey, bud.
I'm going to take a drink. Because, okay. Look, he just told us that he's going to tell us where humans came from the Epic of Atrahasis, which does have a creation myth about the creation of humans, right? But then he said he's going to tell us where hominids came from. But that's not the same question, especially since he seems to think that humans are only kind of hominids. So, like, what is he actually about to tell us? And can he determine the difference between the word hominid and human? Because I'm assuming that Billy is using hominid in the older sense of those apes closer to humans than they are to any other apes that are, like, extant today. Nowadays, because we've had to revise the phylogeny of apes, hominid actually just means any great ape. So that includes orangutans, gorillas, humans, chimpanzees, bonobos. all of them, right? As well as all the hominins, which are also the animals that he's been showing us, like with Lucy. So I'm assuming that when he says hominid, he's using the older term, and what he means in modern use would be hominin. But again, if we have a story about the origin of humans as a species, that's not a story about the origin of hominins as what is actually a tribe, which is, I believe, below subfamily, which is what it actually is.
I should have had this open earlier, but I'm just trying to open Stephanie Dali's translation of Atrahasis, because he's going to read from it, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay. He's going to
Let's
tell
go
us
back to
he's
where it
reading
all
from, right?
started.
I'm not sure.
Okay, because now we're going back. This time period here,
The
the Epic
tablet
of Atrahasis.
of the Covenant
Is that a good enough?
is the heading
Yep.
at the top of his, followed by the Epic of Ziusudra.
Mhm. Which he has told us is
Yeah,
the real name of Noah.
Means nothing.
No, it doesn't mean anything at all. Especially since there's no such thing as a Noah. Like, that's not a real guy.
Yeah.
So
No.
it's sort of like saying, I actually know the real name of Superman. It's like, yeah, but there isn't really a real name of Superman, though. There's his...
Real, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's like, well, I know his Kryptonian name. Well, that's cool, but that means you know the Kryptonian name, which is a name in a language that doesn't exist, from a species that doesn't exist, about a character who doesn't exist. So that doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but, like,
Yeah.
good for you for knowing his Kryptonian name. Isn't it Kal-El anyway? Like, isn't that something I know? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I've never been a huge Superman fan because I feel like by giving him one weakness and then essentially making him a god in all other senses, you've limited the number of stories that you can effectively tell about this man.
You would think that as someone who doesn't read Superman, but there are many, many stories that you can tell with Superman that don't require him having one single weakness. Like, the whole idea is he's not a human who learns how to become human, so he could be the best of us, and that is a lot of stuff to mine.
Oh, this is...
Okay,
Giving
well,
him
maybe
morality
this is,
challenges is good.
Okay. What's that, Kip?
Oh, no, it's not quite. It's very close. I did find it. It's actually thankfully right at the start of the epic.
Oh, okay, so we're getting...
And it looks it's actually very, very close to
well, I'm assuming
Dali's
that,
translation,
that he has a scholarly translation here, because that's part of his cover, right? It's part of his, I'm not following Sitchin, I'm using a real translation.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Sure, bud.
you are, but also you're then just retranslating it for your audience into whatever Zechariah Sitchin said. Lieutenant Matt Navier for $5 says, I feel like this man would get on well with Ian Nasir. Yeah, probably. I saw a 2-sentence horror story that was something like, thankfully, all that was damaged...
a time machine. Yeah, I got, oh no, I'm stuck in the past. I just need to find some copper for my time machine.
Mm-hmm. It was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I hope someone in ancient Sumer will sell me some good quality copper for my time machine.
Good quality copper.
Like, oh no.
Yeah.
Cease, which is really the Epic of Ziusudra, which
That is a way that you could say that word.
is actually Noah. But this story
is
deep,
I'm just
super
drinking.
ancient before Ziusudra, and
Ziusudra.
of where I'm reading here. And you can get this tablet. This is a translated Sumerian cuneiform tablet that was translated long before Zechariah Sitchin was even born. So
see, he's doing it. He's doing the thing.
He's doing the
drink
thing.
for a prediction.
I don't want to hear anybody complaining about Zechariah Sitchin translated this. No, he didn't.
Well, that's true. That is actually true. He did not translate this.
That's true.
Because he can't translate, or couldn't translate this. He never learned Sumerian. So let's take a drink for Billy Carson being correct. Zechariah Sitchin never translated this. Instead, what he did was he found translations that already existed, and then made up a bunch of nonsense about them. It's like if the message... You know, the quote-unquote, the Bible, the message, which is just like some guy just kind of paraphrased the entire Bible. What if that guy, instead of wanting to paraphrase it to be in line with like his particular brand of Christian theology, was like, what if I paraphrase the Bible to match up with what Georgios Tsoukalos would want to hear from the Bible? That's about what Zechariah Sitchin did.
I mean, it's vibes-based translation.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, all translation has some vibes going on in there. It has to. But when vibes are all you care about, well, you run into some problems, especially if vibes are all you care about, and also you don't actually speak the original language in any meaningful sense.
No, he didn't. George Smith translated this before Zechariah Sitchin was even a sperm in his daddy's sex. Okay.
Weird phrasing.
I think this is
Okay.
George Smith's
So let's throw that one out the window right away for all those crazy people that want to hit on Zechariah Sitchin.
Hey, bud.
I don't want to hit on Zechariah Sitchin. If I were looking for someone to hit on, Sitchin would be very low on that list.
Zechariah Sitchin never translated any Sumerian tablets. He did.
Also true.
Yeah. Correct.
It's just weird that you're going to go with his interpretation for everything, though, Billy.
Didn't translate anything. All he used was existing translations that were done long before he was born.
Mm-hmm. Also
that
true.
was all fake news too. People talking about he's the only one who could translate the tablets and he's trying to make all this stuff up. No.
This is really weird, like crapping all over Zechariah Sitchin, despite accepting every distinctive thing that Zechariah Sitchin said about these texts.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. In a lot of my lectures and workshops, I named 3 or 4 prominent scholars that had translated the Sumerian tablets long before Zechariah Sitchin even existed. All right. So anyway, with that being said,
I can debunk Strawman too.
I'm going to
Right?
talk to you about this tablet here, the tablet of the covenant. Now, this tablet of the covenant, let me set this up for you. The Ijiji are also Anunnakis. These Anunnakis were working on Mars, the moon.
By the way, when he says Ijiji,
Mars.
he is pronouncing the word Enugi that you're seeing there. I don't know where he gets Gigi from, but you can clearly see on the second line, or sorry, the second sentence, which is actually the 5th line at the end of it, it doesn't say Ijiji, it says Enuggi, which in no world could reasonably be said to be spelling out Ijiji.
It's the same in Dolly's translation though. So
Well,
I
I
don't
mean, this translation is probably a fairly reasonable one for when it was made, which probably would have been like the 40s or something like that, I think. It's going to be older than Zechariah Sitchin.
Yeah, which is weird. I still think that this is not. I think this is actually her translation because it's so damn close. Like literally, it's the punctuation is the same, which is weird when it comes to like Sumerian text especially. But there's literally just a word here or two that are off.
You know,
otherwise everything looks exactly the same.
In the chat, who was it? Ryan Klotastic pointed out the Ijiji are from a different story. So it's possible he's actually getting this word from elsewhere, and this word isn't actually occurring here. So maybe I'm wrong that he's just mispronouncing that word. You know what? That might be. In which case, I'm sorry, Billy, if that was the case.
And also on Earth, doing hard labor, according to the tablets. This is not Billy Carson saying this; it's the tablet saying this. They were getting pissed off
Love
because
how
the labor.
he's so insistent.
Oh, you know what? Ijiji does
It's
occur.
not Billy Carson's the tablets.
Ijiji, although I wouldn't pronounce it that way, does occur on line 3. So you know what, Billy? Sorry about that. My bad.
It was too hard. They were laboring for 250,000 years. All right. I don't know how many generations
Must
of them that
happen.
was, but they call a year one shar, and one shar is 3,600 years. So when 30.
And where is he getting any of that from this tablet?
That's not Billy Carson saying. That's tablet saying it.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, then Billy, you need to show us what tablet says that, or at least tell us what tablet says that.
Yes.
Because right now,
You think-
you're just saying things, and here's the thing. I brought Kip in primarily because he's more familiar with the tablet, with the Epic of Atrahasis than I am, by a lot. But that doesn't excuse you, Billy, from having to actually tell people where you're getting this information.
600 years goes by on Earth, that's 1 year for these people.
Well, no, that would be a shar, because
Right.
a year is definitionally how long it takes Earth to go around the sun on average. You have a different word for it. It would be a shar. You could say it's like a year for them.
How they measured time. But anyway, so I'm gonna pick it up from there. Let's look at what happened to the Ijiji, because they were being forced to work like slaves and they was getting pissed off. So the tablet says, when the gods instead of man did the work, bore the loads, the gods' load was too great, the work too hard, the trouble too much, The great Anunnaki, and by the way,
Mhm.
Anunnaki is in the Sumerian tablets and the cuneiform tablets. There's a lot of people who try to say that word never existed. I'm sorry.
I'm not aware of anyone who has ever claimed that the word Anunnaki does not occur in any of the Sumerian texts. I mean, it basically just means the sons of Anu, right? Like, it's a very Sumerian word from Sumerian texts. I don't know who it is that's telling Billy Carson that it's not in there, but it's certainly not anyone who knows what they're talking about. So, like, hey, if you've been out there trying to criticize Billy Carson's work and one of your talking points is that the word Anunnaki isn't in Sumerian texts, please stop. That isn't helpful. Although I'm not actually very confident that anyone is actually doing that to him, because that sounds like something that Billy just made up.
Sorry, guys. Here it is right here. Straight out of the British Museum.
Well, no, here it is in a translation. Technically, you need to actually show it to us in the actual Sumerian, but we know you can't, because we also know that Billy Carson hasn't spent any time studying Sumerian. I would love to see Billy Carson try to break down a Sumerian verbal complex and, like, actually diagram out a Sumerian sentence. I would love to see that. That would be amazing. I bet Dr. Josh could do it for us.
He could.
Could
He's
you?
He's going to do
he
it
would be
tomorrow night.
relieved to do something like this instead of slavery again.
Well, I thought that, but then when I had him on to talk about that kind of stuff, suddenly it was all intimidating.
No, you mentioned
didn't-
split
no,
ergativity,
no,
and
no.
he was
You
like,
didn't
"What?"
have him on to talk about that stuff. You did not.
He came on to talk about Sumerian.
Honest. Let's be honest.
Okay, let's be honest. Why did I have him on? In your opinion?
No, well, you didn't have him on to talk about Sumerian literature.
Well, I mean, Sumerian language, the language of Sumeria.
You said language, but not the literature, which is probably what he thought you meant. Which is why he was like, "Oh my God, why are you mentioning split ergativity right now? I don't what."
All right, it is possible that there was a miscommunication in that, and that he thought I was there to talk about stories, and instead I was there to talk about grammar.
And I can talk about this later. But even though you didn't, Josh will be on tomorrow night to talk about this.
Okay.
So.
Just not with me, because I'm too intimidated.
No. Because, well, I mean, you are a dinosaur.
It's true. I'm a 2-meter tall hypercarnivore from the Jurassic. It's not very comforting. But I like to think that what the beaver said about Aslan is also true about me. I might not be safe, but I'm at least good. Thanks, Chronicles of Narnia. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, maybe Strong's Concordance has a Sumerian leaflet for him to use. Oh, man. Oh, that was actually really, really good. Strong's Concordance.
I almost spit my coffee everywhere. Y'all literally almost saw that.
Wow.
Woo!
All right.
Damn.
Yeah.
Trouble too much. The great Anunnaki made the Ijiji carry the workload sevenfold.
Okay.
So they're saying that the great Anunnaki, in other words, the kings of the earth and the kings of this region, which were Enki, Enlil, Anu.
No. The Anunnaki are literally the sons of Anu, so they can't include Anu among their number. That's impossible. It can only include the sons of Anu. It's like when you say the sons of Abraham, right? That clearly doesn't include Abraham himself. Everything good?
You okay?
Nope, didn't hear anything.
I can't hear you. Nope. Nothing.
I didn't touch anything.
I believe you. You've been having
now.
this problem for like a few months now with Yep, still having it.
Well, while we're talking about that, some people will notice that there are microphones on my wish list. So this one, if it's starting to die,
which it very well might be,
is the higher ranking gods, so to speak. They were putting a lot of work on these people, making them create all the waterways and everything else. And their father was king.
Okay, Billy, I want you to think about that. You think that the reason that these beings were on Earth is because they were aliens who needed gold. What? I'm going to use it. I'm going to use our one. What the fuck are they building waterways for? Or we could go with
The
the
gold
actual,
down the rivers
Yeah.
to the sites.
or we could go with the actual.
They panned the gold from the rivers.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you couldn't just do that
Yeah.
from the river
That's-
anyway.
I've seen that.
So here's the other thing. Or this is a creation myth from a society that got its calories by digging irrigation canals and setting up flood levees because of the unpredictable flooding of the rivers they were depending on for irrigation. And this is a creation myth involving gods that didn't actually exist, setting up this way of life before they created humans and taught them how to be civilized. You know, a common theme in the mythologies of the world of civilized societies. Maybe that's what's going on, Billy, instead of this being an actual historical account of aliens who needed gold for no reason. I don't know. One of those might be a slightly more plausible
maybe
interpretation.
Maybe the aliens liked looking fancy, and who could blame them? They
I'm-
like shiny things. I mean,
The thing is, it's not that they want gold for no reason, I guess, which is a misspeak on my part. It's more that they are getting it from Earth for no reason. It's so
Yeah.
easy to go get gold if you're already flying around between different star systems. It's trivial to get as much gold as you want. Gold is not that rare of an element out there in the galaxy. You can just go get a bunch. There's a reason that when talking about gold press latinum in Deep Space Nine, Quark says, whoever had the idea of taking platinum and putting it inside worthless gold was a genius. You know why gold is worthless? Because it's everywhere. Once you can get easy, cheap spaceflight, gold stops being a commodity of any particular importance, unless you have a practical need for it, like electronics or something. Kent, the Bacteria Kind Hall said for $4.99 says, "This is the true what does God need with a starship moment." Yeah, exactly.
yep.
What do these aliens need with gold? And we have to update the count here for the Bent get free pizza. And the answer is looking like probably not, although let's double check the fundraiser. Might have gone up.
Alright.
Not since the 130.
Yet. Okay.
King, their counselor warrior Enlil, their chamberlain was Ninurta, their canal controller Inu-G. They took
We're also for $5.
We got it sort of that time.
I'm okay with a new G, right? Like, look, clearly there's no reason to soften these G's. Whatever, I don't care that much. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, what do the gods need with a shovel? Yeah, I mean, right? And the answer, of course, is that the conception of gods in the ancient Near East, which is what we're talking about,
Pretty different.
was far more anthropomorphic than what the modern conception of gods tends to be, right? The gods were physical beings who had to go around and do things. Like, there's a reason that
They
Genesis...
start by doing the work.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing in the very first line of
and
Atrahasis.
you can even see this theme in Genesis 2 and 3, which is the older creation narrative, where God comes down physically into the garden. He's walking around. The way he creates humans is by physically molding a human out of the ground and then breathing into
Out
it.
of the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very...
Sacrifices in the earlier period smelled sweet. Like, he liked the way they smelled, and it's like, well, people generally need, or entities need, noses in order to detect scent, so...
You know what this tells me?
Is
that God's favorite place is probably just hanging out right outside of a Texas barbecue place.
Oh my god,
A
really?
soothing
All the
smell
flavor-
towards the
yeah.
side breath.
Exactly.
That's a soothing smell.
If there were ever a soothing smell. Every once in a while, I'll watch a video of people from some part of the world that doesn't have Texas barbecue trying it for the first time. And they're always just absolutely blown away. They're like, wait, what is happening right now? What is this?
Yeah, I'm telling you, like, there's not a lot of good things that I can say about Texas, but the brisket is good.
My favorite was there were some Chinese people eating the brisket, and they were like, this isn't brisket, though, because it's so tender. Because normally briskets are pretty rough cut of meat. And it's like, no, this is brisket that's been cooked slowly on a low temperature for like 16 hours. And they're like, oh, like, yeah.
When Texas does brisket, it comes correct.
Oh, yeah.
the box of lots and cast the lots. The gods made the division and went up to the...
Okay, Billy, are you actually telling me that you think that advanced interstellar aliens are deciding things by divination magic?
Okay.
That's how they're dividing up the labor.
Cheery Words of a King, 7 times purified. Rana writes in the chat, and sometimes gods cheat at wrestling.
True. Other times God cheats at wrestling. Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
It's like the modern idea of a perfectly transcendent, non-physical being is just not an ancient conception that anyone until fairly recently would have reckoned. Like really, until both Judaism and Christianity start really contending with Greek philosophy, this idea of like a completely non-embodied God that is just transcendent and eternal and beyond space, and that's not really much of a thing. It's really the Greeks that
Snowballs started rolling around the Hellenistic period, and it only like picked up steam as it went.
Finally, by the time you get into like the Common Era, you're starting to see both Christian and Jewish theologians come up with ideas about like the eternality and transcendence of God and how God's completely unapproachable, and that's where you get things in both religions actually about like the unapproachability and the invisibility of God. You couldn't even see him or comprehend God in his very nature, and all you can see are his energies that emanate from him. All of that is just both. Also, Muslims eventually get in on that too. Eventually, trying to deal with these philosophical questions that were not an issue.
That's also a thing, especially in the medieval period. Is like Christian and Jewish commentators in particular talk about how, all that anthropomorphic language. Now we're just going to retcon that. That's metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
God has body. No, stupid.
Although there is actually a school of Muslim philosophy that says that not only does God not have a body, but yes, he also does have anatomy, including hands and legs and eyes and whatnot. And no, you don't need to understand that.
Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Just, it's okay. Yeah. It's fine.
The sky. And Enlil took the earth for his people. Okay, now think about this. They basically...
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for $5 says, "Oh no, it's Yahweh with a folding chair!"
Amazing!
It's about fucking time.
Yes!
We did. We just got it.
Release the kip.
All right, with 7 minutes to go.
7 minutes to go. Well done, chat.
Yeah. So, but maybe I need to. Can I say something about this that I think gets lost too? Because there's this sense that trickery and cheating and chicanery. Let's use that word. Fucking
chicanery. It's a great word.
Chicanery. Is like is like a moral problem. So Jacob's name it means most say that it means heel grabber. It also comes from a root that means basically trickster or cheater. And people didn't look at this and go, "Oh, terrible Jacob. Such a rotten guy."
Clever tactics.
Clever Jacob. Get one over.
Jacob's like the ancient Near East version of the Catch Me If You Can guy.
Yes, exactly.
Stiltskin?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. This is good. This is not a problem. And I think you can see
Captain Kirk defeating the Kobayashi Maru.
There you go. But I think you can see some of this in the in the trickster, the trickster god that Jacob ran into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, haha, got you.
At least the trickster god that Jacob ran into never turned into a mare and then accidentally gave birth to an 8-legged horse.
That's
right.
True. That never happened.
It happened for a different.
Have you seen that meme? That's
Frank Abagnale
panel
Jr.
1. Panel 1 is 2 horses and it says nickering seductively, and the bottom panel is Loki just like.
Yes.
It's so funny.
All right, so we are basically at the point where we have to start wrapping up. We made it through about 8 minutes, which is actually pretty normal for us.
That's not bad for one of these. Yeah.
Look at that.
It's pretty decent.
I might only be here for like fucking 5 months instead of 7.
We're only like a third of the way through this. You know, we've only done this like 3 times.
Okay.
So like
fair.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Kit, what do you have coming up on your channel that you think people need to know about? Maybe up to a week in advance.
Maybe tonight?
Many things. Like maybe tonight. Budget Scripture Saturday is tonight. Dr. Tapioca Weasel is still in Scotland, so he won't be there. And I don't know yet if Nitty is coming, but I certainly hope so. I'm planning on moving ahead. Tomorrow, I'm very excited because Dr. Tapioca Weasel is in Scotland. I get to co-host. Maya said so. She said this. It's true.
She's letting
I get
you
to
on her
co-host.
channel?
She's letting, not just I've been on her channel a few times. She's letting me co-host Bad Science Sunday with her tomorrow. She said so.
Excellent.
And it's going to be an awesome show because Dr. Joshua Bone will be making his world premiere on Bad Science Sunday tomorrow night on my Atkinson's channel at 9:30 Eastern. He's going to take a nap so that he stays awake for.
I was going to say that's late for him.
Some of it, but he's going to be there. And
Maya, if you're here, ask Dr. Josh about Sumerian strategies for valence changing operations. You should ask him about that.
I'm just gonna bully this guy off the internet, friggin' linguistics.
Yeah. So I suggest it's probably not happening. So and then I also made the decision that I've got a bunch of stuff on other people's platforms that I think I'm going to start consolidating. So
nice.
So this week I'm starting that process, and I think it looks like on Wednesday I'll be doing a stream with Vish as usual, of course, and with Pat Lowinger from Discovering Ancient History with Pat Lowinger. And we're going to be doing a presentation that we did a couple of years ago all about Francesca Stavrakopoulou's reading of Isaiah chapter 6 and what the fuck is going on in Isaiah's temple throne vision from Isaiah chapter 6. So that's going to be fun.
Probably not.
Maybe
might be dicks.
Maybe it could be. It might be dicks. It might be a bag full of Charlie Kirks.
A surprising amount of human history just comes down to there were a bunch of dicks.
It's oftentimes the correct answer to these sorts of questions. Yeah. So it's a great presentation.
Another donation, $20. Thank you, Sean.
Right.
Appreciate that.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. And then I'll be reading Hebrew with Dr. Josh on Thursday evening, as usual.
All right. Vishanti, you have anything coming up you want people to know about?
Just gonna promote the fundraiser. As much as I've talked to Dapper about this privately, is it's very vanishingly difficult for me to ask for help with things and to continually feel like I'm just dealing with these circumstances still, and
I had to give her a deadline.
Things applying and job interviews and things, and it just none of it's landing, and I'm really struggling with what that's doing to me mentally. And yeah, it's been rough. When you grow up in the South like I did, people kind of instill in you this idea that if something's wrong with your life or you're not successful, it's your fault morally somehow. So trying to work through that, because I know that's crap.
Yeah.
So
there are exceptions. There are people who did immoral things and therefore ruin their lives, but that's not Vishanti.
Right, but I have not done anything of the sort. I was quite literally laid off, which you don't have a choice in. So yeah, it sucks that this job process is taking so long. It's the longest it's ever taken for me. So I'm very much in new uncharted waters here, and I prefer not to be unhoused. So any of the donations so far is very meaningful to me, and I very much appreciate it.
I'm pretty sure we won't let you go unhoused, Vishanti.
Thank you.
All right, so what is coming up over on my channel? First of all, actually, before that, we're going to be watching Power Rangers after this. Then at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be over on Debate Hub with Chesh and Manya and Landon Knoll. And we're going to be talking about the news, because I hate myself, and I therefore will do a monthly news channel, or news show.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like you can't do a news show nowadays unless you hate yourself.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
not going to be able to watch it because I'm going to 28 years later with my son.
Yeah. Which again is one of those cases where part of the answer, at least, is there were a bunch of dicks. So then on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be doing Kent with Bent. It is Dumb Eternal. That is the name of that one.
It's Canada Day, by the way.
It is also Canada Day. Which, I don't know, maybe I'll put a maple leaf in. I'm not going to do that. I'm too lazy. I also don't care. It's not because I don't like Canada. It's I barely even do anything for the 4th of July. Last 4th of July, here was my celebrations. I made a bison burger, one for me and one for Bent. There you go. That was my celebration.
It's so good, though.
That's it.
You could do.
I mean, it is really good, but like all I did was make a slightly more expensive meal than I normally would have. That's it. All I did.
Probably what I'm going to do. Buy the materials for like a hamburger.
Yeah, there you go. So then over on Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, we have He Even Lied About Jurassic Park, which is the finale of the Joel Lineweber lying about bird anatomy and dinosaur anatomy and trying to pretend that if he calls Velociraptor a bird, that somehow that makes Velociraptor and all birds not dinosaurs, which isn't how anything works. But he'll try to convince you otherwise, and I'll be there to counter every point that he has. So then, on Friday, here's the thing. Normally, we would be doing Star Trek Adventures over on Top Hats Off for Star Trek Lexington, but I don't actually know if that's the case this week, because it is, in fact, a national holiday for half of the people there. So, like I was saying, we've got 4 Americans, myself included. We've got 2 Canadians. We've got a Scot and a German. And with that group, with 4 of them or having a holiday, which, I mean, I don't care, I would play, it's also going to be loud, and I expect most people probably want to do things like go watch fireworks or something. So there's, I would say, better than even chance that we don't play this week. So don't hold your breath for Star Trek Endurance.
One of the reasons that I convinced Kip, like, hey, we probably won't have a very big audience if we do a stream on Friday, because I know for sure in my neighborhood, which loves fireworks all year round, there will be lots of very loud explosions, and I don't think people want to hear that.
Yeah. So,
to answer Prixie's question, Budget Scripture Saturday starts at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific.
Yeah.
Very late.
It's a late night show.
So yeah, chances are, if you're a big fan of Star Trek Endurance, there probably won't be a show. That doesn't mean I won't do anything. I might just do something on my own. I might stream myself making more art assets for either Star Trek Endurance, or maybe I'm actually starting the planning phases of what I'm doing after Star Trek Endurance. Because I think we probably have about a little less than a year left of Star Trek TTRPG stuff that I have set up. And after that, I'm probably going to switch to a different TTRPG. So I might do some like asset creation for that. I don't know yet. So there might be something. I'm not promising. But then on Saturday, the plan is that all 3 of us are going to be back. At least that's my plan. Is that everyone else's plan?
I believe that's my plan.
All right. Well, that's the plan for Saturday.
I don't think I'm going anywhere yet.
All right. And we'll get more Billy Carson in. And Billy Carson will read for us more of the Epic of Atrahasis, which he's going to call the Epic of Zizudra, except he's going to pronounce it Zizudra.
From the Tablet of the Covenant.
There you go. And yeah, we're going to see just how much he can take what is a pretty straightforward narrative about gods and the creation of humans and turn it into a wacky sci-fi story about genetic engineering and also maybe like weird breeding fetishes. It's not clear. Yeah. Sorry, Vishanti. Anyway, we're going to get out of here.
I had to listen to all of John Marco Allegro's BS about mushrooms yesterday, so
that was fun.
I'm done, man. Like,
we didn't have to listen directly to John Marco Allegro.
I'm just going to say it's possible that one of the gods in here is going to be interpreted more or less like an Ashlot tank from the Dune series.
Incredible.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you know anything about Dune, you know if you know more than anything, if you are into some of the Dune deep lore, you'll know what that means, and it's not great. So, After this, I am going to be going over to my Discord. It'll probably be a few minutes. But yeah, we're going to be watching Power Rangers Beast Morphers Season 2 episodes 5, 6, 7, 8. So come hang out for that. We just did find out that, yes, in fact, the mayor is what everyone suspected. He is, in fact, has been possessed by the big bad evil guy of the season, Evox.
Done.
Yeah. He also happens to be the Red Ranger's father. And Power Rangers, in case you don't know, has a long history of pretty damn good fathers and a very short history of moms at all. Not a lot of moms. Few, but not many.
What's that about?
I don't know. It's a weird recurrent theme that there are not many moms in Power Rangers. There are no couples, basically. Everyone's basically a single parent, and most of them are dads, and most of them are pretty good at it. Some of them only become good at it later on during the show after they realize the errors of their ways. So, anyway, talk to y'all later. Have a great rest of your weekend if I don't see you, but I should see you. Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovind, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Eleron Teller, Phil Rivara, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostek Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, Vollus, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Tapioca Weasel. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.